Welcome to Deep Thought, learning from the past. Now, I mentioned on a couple other videos that I was in the DC area this past Monday. And one of the things I did was visit the National African American Museum. And it's an experience I recommend to everybody, and it is a deep thought thing because what it does, it chronicles the past, it chronicles history. But it's key not to just look at the exhibits and say, oh, they went through that, or they, this was sad, but we moved on. The key with history is to learn from it and not to make the same mistakes. And that's something we're doing. That's why you get some people, they're real smart. They can actually predict what's going to happen because they actually sit back and study what's happened in the past. They study different cycles. Some people get even deeper. They can break down cycles to the actual years that they will happen with stunning accuracy. And this gets into some deeper metaphysics, but everything happens in cycles. It's not linear. People think it's linear, but it happens at a new level. For example, a lot of the conflict now between, I would say, pro-Trump forces or the far right and the left is nothing but a continuation at another level of the American Civil War. And if we were to go back maybe 150 years before that, we'll find some type of conflict of that nature. 150 years from now, there will probably be the same thing. Like everything goes back in cycles. And there's a concept, it's called an echo. Like if something happened 50 years ago, you'll see kind of the same thing now, not on the same level, but that's the echo. But anyway, that gets into some deeper science that, quite frankly, I'm still learning about. But I know the general aspects of it, but not the deeper aspects. So I don't want to discuss it too much. But I can discuss the learning from the past. Now, anyone who's watching, looking at the thumbnail and seeing some of my podcasts, they see the Adinkra symbol from Ghana and West Africa from the Akan people of the Gi and Yami, which means, in general, it's the supremacy of God. That's the short meaning. Long meaning is like a paragraph. But there's another Adinkra symbol that I might get and put on my wall. Well, it's actually two symbols that represents this concept. It's called Sankofa. And Sankofa, the short meaning is go back and fetch it or go back and get it. But the longer meaning is it's not wrong to go back for that which you have forgotten. Now, the concept of Sankofa is go back to the past to learn the useful things and also to learn the mistakes, not to mistake them again, but also bring back what is pertinent, which can work. Like the Sankofa is represented, one, by a bird with his head turned backwards with his feet facing forward, and in the bird's mouth there's an egg. It means looking back for that knowledge, getting that knowledge, that seed of knowledge, and then bringing it to the present day, but cleared of the mistakes. That's the thing to learn from the past. Like there's a lot of stuff now that we haven't learned. There's a lot of stuff going on now. Like, for example, many women are probably concerned with the effort to roll back Roe v. Wade. But it was inevitable. It was inevitable because if we check the past, there's always been an effort at least throughout Western history to control women's sexuality and also encourage fertility. But if you have abortions, that's not encouraging fertility. And the reason the women are concerned because women don't really want to be caught. They really don't want to have the children of a non-select man. I mean, the whole thing is deeper. People think feminism is about just simply women working on their own, but you have to ask why they want to do that. And really a short answer is they don't want to be in a position where they have to be forced to mate with a non-select male. But that's something later. But, I'm tying that to going to the African American Museum. We can go back and say, okay, this worked, this didn't work. Okay, this was wrong-headed, this was a good idea. Because it'll get back to that. Because in fact, when I talk about echoes and stuff like that, one echo, and this is a long-term echo, if you look at Reconstruction and then the 1970s, and they actually happened around 100 years apart, roughly, around the same time. Like, we really got civil rights and in this country around 1964 officially, but gradually through the late 60s and 70s. That was a great period for blacks, but that's a period that happened before Reconstruction. It was very empowering. We had a whole lot of black elected officials. Blacks had a lot of stuff going. Boom. All of a sudden, they started rolling it back. That echo we had in the 60s, I mean, it was going. Black is beautiful. People wearing their hair natural. Schools were establishing African black studies programs. All of a sudden, 1980, Reagan came in. Part of the reason he came in was to kind of roll back stuff. And that's a process that's continuing. People don't realize that. So it's like, we're actually, if you really follow the pattern, well, 100 years from now, roughly, we're going to be doing the same things. It's going to be a slightly different context. In fact, anybody who study and anybody aware of it, we're really headed towards, at least a black race in America, is headed towards being a permanent underclass. So that's why you'll look at the past and say, wait a minute, hold up, there's a pattern here. We need to break this. And I thought about that as I watched a lot of stuff happening. If you look at like the big movers towards desegregation. But if you look at things now, it's a different type of segregation. As I drove through the streets of D.C., I looked at places that had been like solidly black. This is the second time I did that. All of a sudden, I'm seeing all these expensive homes and everything where they're gradually moving out black folk. And this time, the segregation won't be done through law, but rather through economics. It'll say, hey, if you make this much money, you can get there. But when you look at not the 0.01%, but the 9.9%, that's the group population that should be concerned with. And that's really 32 million. That's a big ass population. 32 million, that's more than most countries. Those are the people, if you're not in that 9.9, or, if you're going to say it overall, top 10%, but technically 9.9, shoot, you pretty much at a different place. And there's a lot of stuff coming. But that's why you learn from the past to see, okay, this happened then. Let's track this. And you probably use a graph. I know my mentor, he can really track it. He could tell you. That's how, and honestly, and I'm not going to get into how, that's why I was able to tell people some stuff was going to happen in 2016. Like, I could have predicted that someone like Donald Trump would get elected. And the only way he wouldn't have got elected, it had to have been a male, an unapologetic male, whatever you think of him. He's very blunt and very male, regardless of what you think of him. It would have to be that equal type of energy from a Democrat. And I'll make this prediction now. It's going to take, if he's challenged, it's going to take a strong male energy. Somebody's going to, even if a woman is elected, she's going to have a strong male energy. That's my prediction right now. And I know because stuff I'm not getting into, and it's not some like Illuminati selection thing, but rather it's the energy. It's going to have to be a male with that energy to even challenge that. It's going to be somebody who, if Donald Trump says something, they clap back hard and viciously. So, but you learn that from the past. You learn that from the energy. In fact, from the energy, speaking of Donald Trump, there were many people who could have predicted that this would happen. All they had to do was just look at the history. He was inevitable, if not him, someone else of a similar character or similar energy. All right, but that's why you go back. You learn from the past. You say, all right, this is what happened here. This was what's happening here. You start tracking stuff. And then, like I said, there's some more advanced ways of being even more accurate. And people will be like, oh, wow. And some people, I'll just say there's a small group of people who know how to track it. So they already know. Like, there's some people tracking something. If they saying there will be a recession in this country, it pretty much will be. Once again, you got to track the energy. So anyway, right, you want to learn from the past. So anyway, that's all I got for today. I'll talk to you later. Peace and blessings.